Well, we're back, Les.
Yes, we are.
Another Les Kevin, more tech from UTEC IT.
Yes.
And today's going to be one of those fun days, right? Because you and I almost get to kind of take the day off, right?
I feel the energy in the studio.
Yes, because our guest, we'll get to him in a second. But we brought in our Ypsilanti historian and all right here, Tom Harrison, who's our COO. A guy we're very excited about that's joined our organization.
Thank you.
That's making us better.
Thank you.
And one of his favorite people, he said, we got to get this guy on because we don't like the guy. But Tom lobbied for him pretty hard.
That's true.
Tom said we need to have a French guest.
A French guest.
That's what Tom said.
Mr. Washtenaw County.
French guest. There you go.
Mr. Mark
And
Ouimet.
Napoleon was busy?
Yes. So, Mark,
Ouimet.
you've been a longtime supporter of all things Washtenaw County, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, right? With your political career, your business career, educationally, socially, you live here, participate in all things going on here, right?
Well, I was very blessed with parents who were very involved in the community, and so I had really good role models that talked about make sure that you're giving back to the community, make sure really it comes off of the Judeo-Christian philosophy is you take care of your you earn money to take care of your family, you earn money to take care of your church, you earn money to take care of your community. And I took that very seriously as a kid growing up because my father was very good about taking me to different things, different events. If it was a United Way or Chamber of Commerce or whatever, he would expose me to it. And I learned an appreciation for that when I went off to college and started working at a Catholic school. So it's been it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah. And our first connection, I just bought the business and I was just getting involved in the area, and you came to me and you said, hey, I'm the chair of the Ypsilanti Chamber of Commerce. And I'm looking, as I term off, I'm looking at my board members, and I got this Tom Harrison guy in there. We need somebody that could run this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody to balance him out.
Yeah, we needed to shore that up big time.
But no, that's how we got involved, and we worked with the merger there through Tom's leadership with and yours with the merger of Ann Arbor, and it's become
Well, I felt that it was a time that really both communities had such wonderful strengths, and they could be really leveraged one with the other if they were working together. And I think we had the right people in place that saw that, painted that same picture, that working together would do a lot more for both communities and the county in general. And we were able, with Tom's leadership and yours, be able to merge the two.
How'd that go, Tom?
Well, I will tell you, it was an interesting time. I think overwhelmingly the board and people in the community supported it. But I think there's always been that, that relationship between Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor, where Ypsilanti always worried that it would get lost in Ann Arbor's shadow. And I think one of the things, and Mark and I have talked about this before, that he did exceptionally well, and why I think you were the right person to have at that time, is you were always good about remembering Ypsilanti, and it was a big part of a lot of the things that you did. So you had a lot of credibility in that community when this came. So, and it was the right thing for us to do, to merge the two chambers. I think.
well, between the two of you, you're all things Washtenaw County, right?
We got it locked up.
Yeah.
I think, don't we have it locked up?
This is it.
Yeah, right here.
This is as good as it gets.
You know, we could talk about all the roles you've filled here. Maybe we should talk about a short list of the roles you haven't filled in Washtenaw County. Have you been president of the University of Michigan?
No.
Okay, well then
There
what
you
else
go.
is there to talk
There's
about?
one.
Yeah, but you have been involved in higher education, haven't you?
Yeah, I had I served as vice chair of Northwood University's board, and we lost our chancellor, which would be a president, and right before school opened up. And so the board asked me to step in on an interim basis and take over. And we had 3 campuses. We had Midland, Michigan, we had Florida and Texas. And the idea was for me to be there until we put together a search committee and found a president. But we got heavily involved in restructuring the curriculum, restructuring where we were athletically, and more importantly, we were just in the midst of accreditation from the NCAA, which is the accreditation that universities seek. And so I needed to follow that through. So it was for me personally, it was a wonderful 4 or 5 years that I had an opportunity to give back to the university, which did a lot for me.
Did you know going in it was going to be a 4 or 5 year journey?
No, it was one of those just like my. It just.
But that was the shortest stint he did at a university. The first go around he was at a university was a little bit longer, right?
No, actually, I graduated in 3.5 years. So I was. It was nice from the standpoint that the board and myself had the same vision of where we wanted to be, and I felt a moral obligation to stay with it until we had walked through that and got to the other side.
So you didn't think that, okay, you said, I'll take the interim role. You walked out of the room and they all went.
Well, yeah. It was a very interesting time for higher education because it was when 9/11 hit. And that closed down visas into the state. And a third of our students were non-U.S. citizens. So universities that don't have big endowments are strictly a cash flow type of university. So we were faced with immediately that a reduction in revenue. And so we had to work through that without sacrificing the mission of what the university is and making sure that our students got properly taken care of. So it was an interesting time to be in education.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great school.
Yeah, I'm very
Really
proud
good.
of it.
Yeah, one of our youngest future executives is a graduate from there.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
so he's fast tracking.
Who's that?
Connor Cole.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Oh, good for him.
soccer star there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and you know what he told me? He said the best thing about that university is after you graduate, is it's still a close knit community among alumni. Very tight, very tight.
Yeah, it is. The alumni relations are extremely important because, like a small school, if you're not laser focused on your mission, then you can get splintered pretty quickly. But if you have a group like your employee and myself, my son, my daughter graduated from there, they have a core group of friends that have stayed together over the years because their ideals are all the same.
Got it. Yeah.
I have to say my experience has been the Alumni Association from Northwood is probably one of the tightest groups I've met in terms of alumni associations.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's coming from the historian.
Yeah. There you go.
And someone who didn't attend Northwood, and I'm a member of other alumni associations, but none of them I think are quite as tight or well run as
Yeah,
as
well, that's nice to hear.
So one of the things we did like about you, and I think Tom and I have both said this before, is that as business owners, you've been down that road before. You've had businesses, sold businesses, ran businesses, but you were quick to pull Tom and I aside using your banking experience and offer counsel if we wanted it, you know what I mean, and guidance if we ever had questions. And you were a great resource to reach out to us, and we always enjoyed our conversations, didn't we, Tom?
We did. I will say I was trying to remember, and I think I have this right. So you, of course, and my mother had worked together for many years on things in the community.
Yes.
And that's, I think, how you and I became friends.
Correct.
40 years ago.
Wow. Has it been that
It's
long?
been that long.
Holy smokes.
And you've always been a good, mentor and resource whenever I've had questions or problems or whatever it is that I could always reach out to you, and you've always provided your sage advice to
Well,
me throughout
as
the
you
years.
well know, what I think of your mom, I think she walks on water. So she's a terrific lady.
that she is.
Well, what's her name?
Marcia Harrison.
Marcia Harrison. Which one does she like better?
She likes Mark
Oh,
better.
me.
You? Okay.
Far more.
I
I gave her a lot less problems.
Now that's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
When you get around all the boys, it's like I look good.
Nothing but trouble. Yeah, you're good or bad by comparison. In that case, you would look good. That's true.
But it's been fun working with both you gentlemen because I think you have the core value system that makes it easy to work with, and it's not the value system within organization is the personality of the leadership, and you both are very good leaders, proven leaders, and that's what makes it easy and fun to work with people like you all.
No, we appreciate it. And Lord knows we need the help.
Yeah. Let's get down to brass tacks.
Can you help us do a podcast?
Oh wow! Yeah, this is interesting.
Hey, so what happened to you after Northwood?
I went and I had been from Ypsilanti Chamber awarded me an Athena Award, which is for people who mentor and help women in business. Mm-hmm. And the award has gone out to at that time, about 5,000 women and 10 males.
Oh, okay.
And anyways, I was one of the recipients of that, and they asked me to sit on their board. Mm-hmm. So I was the lone male on a 23-person board. Mm. And we had a financial issue, and they asked me to step in and see if I could get things re-engineered. Yeah. And so I spent roughly a year doing that. And their offices were in Chicago, so every other day I was going to Chicago, flying to Chicago and back and forth, which was interesting. Yeah. Unto itself. But again, it comes back to the philosophy of the entrepreneur and what you can do, and making sure, particularly in this case, women having the access to mm-hmm. capital. Mm-hmm. And that was the main focus that I was trying to address.
Yeah. So how do you think you did?
Well, we during that year, we stabilized and grew the organization. We had a contract that was up with General Motors, and mm-hmm. we solidified that for another 5 years. And we brought in other sponsors to.
Fantastic.
So financially, we did very well, and we grew our membership. And
that's great.
At a time, it was kind of difficult.
Yeah.
But again, that was really, I received that recognition because of the Ypsi Chamber.
Giving back to the community.
Well, it's a two-way. Mm-hmm. It's a two-way thing.
But then you lost your mind and went out and ran for politics. Why?
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
What was going on with that?
I asked that myself. My grandfather was a county commissioner. My dad was on city council in Ann Arbor, and I just always looked at it as an extension of community involvement. It wasn't a career. It was you provide service to community, and then you step away and let someone else do it. And again, I had two very good role models in my grandfather and father who did that. And, it was an interesting time. And then when I was up at the state, we were going through those financial crises. And I had the privilege of overseeing the Detroit bankruptcy and the emergency manager and the Detroit lighting issue. So kind of right at the colliding of many mm-hmm. of issues and redoing the Detroit retirees' pension. Wow. So it was a very interesting time, and felt that hopefully there was some value given back. And the mayor of Detroit and I worked very well together, and that was Dave Bing. Mm-hmm. And David I had known for years, and we worked really well together.
Yeah.
What years were you in the state legislature, Mark?
2010 to 2012.
Okay. When you look back on that, there was a time, but looking at politics today, I mean, is that, do you scratch your head and wonder where everybody's lost their minds and
Yeah, I mean,
where it's gone?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it didn't because it's so divisive now that it didn't work towards, for me personally, what I thought were my strengths, and that was bringing things together. And I was very blessed with, on a bipartisan vote, receiving Legislator of the Year, and that's the first time a freshman has ever received that recognition. So I was very pleased that both Republicans and Democrats recognized that. But one of the things with it is still, it gets back to partisan politics and who controls the votes. And that never worked to my strong suit.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was more trying to try to bring people together and work through issues versus having all the votes and doing it specifically one way.
I think anybody that's worked with you in the community, whether it's politics or nonprofits or in a business world, would attest to that you've been a great connector and bringing people together and looking at their point of view and understanding that and how do we meet everybody's individual needs for the common good. And
yeah, you know, it can't be what you want. It's always what's best for the organization or the community or whatever you're working on.
you expect us to believe that?
Well, you've believed everything else I've said, so I assume you're going to buy that one too.
I do think, though, those characteristics in Mark are one of the reasons why we were able to merge the two chambers, because that was pretty divisive at the time in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
What were we arguing over sewer lines or water lines from the 40s or something?
I don't recall that.
That's a different deal. That's but the issue
trying to stir the pot.
always,
Yeah.
and you're doing a nice job of it. It always comes back to winners and losers, and if you put someone in an adversarial position and they view themselves as the one that's losing, then it's very difficult to bring groups or people or organizations together. And so I think the opportunity to look at it is a merger of equals, and we worked very hard to do that, making sure that both chambers had representation and, more importantly, leadership, that it alternated, and then eventually it just blends into one.
The world changes, right? Nothing static, nothing stands still. I look at our banking here in Ann Arbor. We used to have a lot of good independent banks, and it seems like that's. Yeah, I know you have a sweet spot for banks and in your background, but talk a little bit about that. We're down to, I think, one locally owned great bank.
Yeah,
now, aren't we?
that has been just to give you a concept. 10 years ago, the community banking in the state of Michigan had about 200 community banks. Today we got about 80. And where that really hurts, of course, is it's just not the decision-making being local. It's the involvement level. I mean, if you look at boards 30 years ago or 40 years ago, that had every representation from the financial institutions. Now, very difficult to get anybody because it's just their job and they're going to be moving and there's no buy-in to the community. And it's just not the financial piece, it's the leadership piece that is, and now, so it's kind of open where it used to be you'd get people from the financial institution both in running the boards or serving on the boards, but having the connectors. And we don't have that today, and that's too bad.
So, Mark, do you see it like a pendulum? Is it going to swing back?
I don't see it meaning in the financial institutions. I don't see that happening because of the federal regulations or state regulations are so heavy now that you can't afford to be small. It's just too expensive.
And I think that's true with a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
Over time, it's just getting more and more difficult to be a small, locally run business. It is.
It just, the regulations now and the government involvement make it very difficult because whether you're a $10 billion bank or a $500 million bank, you got to have the same amount of people doing the
same rules.
Same rules, and it's just too expensive. So your margins get so thin. So if you're a stock-owned financial institution, you can't get the returns. And so what happens? They sell. That's when you investors make money on financial institutions when they sell.
Seems like there's a problem there to be solved.
Well, yeah, and that comes back to deregulation in a lot of areas that would help that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the current climate, though.
No, not at all.
And I don't see that changing anytime soon,
I don't either.
unfortunately. And that will be to the detriment of our communities.
Yeah. I mean, just look at Detroit. I mean, it's a big. It used to be a money center place. You know, Co-America leaves. I mean, they're just there aren't even the local banks in Detroit,
Right. Yeah.
let alone in Ann Arbor.
Well, and that's important to a business, right? I mean, you need that local bank president there that knows you, knows your customer base, knows your
Right.
business, and knows for access to capital, right?
Right.
It's risk management.
And that's one of the biggest things is access to capital, as I mentioned earlier about the Athena Foundation, and why that's so important is you got to make sure that people can get loans and can do things, because that's the entrepreneurial way of being successful. And if you take that away, then you don't have thriving communities.
So, do you see maybe technology coming in and playing a role?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you look now, the money center banks, everything is sent to a location and they crunch the numbers and they give back the loan approval or denial.
Yeah. How about the organizations that are doing the micro loans? For the solopreneur, other capital points where they're using artificial intelligence and they're creating decisions in practical milliseconds.
Right. Yeah, that's a big part of it is because the big expense on anything is people.
Right.
And if you can, I mean, just look at McDonald's. I mean, you don't go to counter people much anymore. It's all done
The
by
kiosk or the phone app.
Yep. So it's in order for organizations to be financially successful.
He didn't know that. Somebody had to tell him about that. Mark's never been to a McDonald's. This guy's Chop House of Ann Arbor all the way.
Well, that's
Or
not
Barton
true.
Hills.
That's not true because every time you said you're going to buy, that's where we go. So I don't know what the heck you're talking about. You're so cheap. I know I had a great point to make until I was rudely interrupted.
You were talking about the technology and
Yes.
the being able to basically engineer human beings out of the equation.
Well,
in the markets.
yeah, and I feel very strongly about the character of the individual. You can look at the financials, but it's the character of the individual and looking at what they're trying to accomplish and figure that out. That you can't do through and by a computer.
Absolutely.
Correct.
And that is a lost art. I don't think it's a science. I think it's an art, and because of that, decisions are made differently today than they once were. But it's the pressure from ownership to make sure you're as profitable as one can be.
Yeah.
No, I think that, it used to be, and I think it's still true today, that business was all about relationships.
Yeah.
And I think they're important, and that isn't, justification to make a bad decision, but knowing the people that you do business with was always an important part of any transaction I ever conducted. And I think that just is becoming harder and harder to come by now.
Yeah, it's difficult to cultivate that.
And you cannot do that as well through technology.
Correct.
It helps, but it's not like getting to know people face to face.
Yeah, and I want to stress the point that your mother liked me more than she did you.
But
That's because she didn't know you that well.
But isn't that a real challenge as we're hiring young people and bringing them on, and they're so geared to cell phone and Instagram and photos and stuff like that. It's not really true connections. Where I think we miss that end of it.
Yeah,
It's a big issue.
Yeah, and I think now we have another layer in there is because people not going to the office. So how do you develop that culture that I spoke about in the beginning? How do you create that culture of what your organization is when you may never see them in person?
Correct.
And So it's a lot easier to leave a company when you have no
Relationship with them. Sure.
personal connection.
And I think technology helps to, manage those relationships once you have them.
Yeah.
I think it's nice because you can see people on computer screens and talk to them and you know them. But to develop a meaningful relationship, I think it's virtually it's impossible compared to being in the office or working together.
Yeah, I would agree.
They've not figured that out
Yeah,
yet.
LinkedIn makes it easy to stay connected, and you've got Teams and technology like that to keep track of people. But you
So
gotta explain
Facebook,
to people to make that happen.
for sure. So we lived in Europe for 3 years, and Facebook's a wonderful way for me to keep in touch with people in Europe. My friends in Europe, their families and their kids and so forth. But we already had a relationship, and it's just an easier way, and
Right.
a more interesting way to stay in touch.
You're not a believer in the metaverse?
No, I'm not. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, Les is always talking about with the sales reps, that at the end of the day, these are things you got to do, but it's very important when you're going through
People
the
buy from people.
forecast. Yeah, they buy from people, but what interactions have you had with them, And it's funny sometimes they look at you with a strange face, right?
Right, yeah. Like, are you doing anything with them, or are they asking you to do anything
But
with
I
them?
liked my Snapchat thing, or it's like, no, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
So, Mark, what's next for you now?
Good question. I'm not going to really think about it. I just got think about doing what is next.
Well, we should
So-
share what he did first to ask what's next.
Well,
You just retired, right?
yeah, I just and now I'm doing consulting with the organization for a year, and then I don't know how busy that's going to keep me, but I just got back yesterday from Portland, Oregon, where my daughter and grandkids are at. So I got to spend some time with them.
Mark, I hate to bring this up, but we had a meeting, the three of us this morning, and we're talking about creating a sales territory for fax machines west of US 23, and just could be an opportunity for you.
Yeah,
Take you back to your roots.
yeah. Well, because you don't need copiers anymore.
Exactly.
Fax machines. That's like dial-up. Like that sound for dial-up.
And
What a-
once upon a time, that was it.
yeah,
That was the thing.
Wasn't that a great sound? That's like a golf cart backing up noise. God, whoever thought that was the noise we should have?
You ever wonder who sold the first fax machine?
I can't say that I have.
No, I've never crossed my mind.
That had to be a hell of a job, Who am I going to fax to? Nobody owns one.
Yeah,
So you got back from Portland. You had a great visit,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's very nice. I really enjoy being with my grandkids.
That's fun.
Oh yeah, it's a great,
I've read somewhere that grandchildren are God's gift to grandparents.
Yeah, you just got to try to survive your own kids first.
Well, I was going to say there are reward for having children, right?
But I just thoroughly enjoy. We took all three grandboys this past summer to Alaska,
Wow.
and tried to marry one of them off, but it didn't work. But we had a great time, and we didn't bring the parents. It was just my wife and I and the three grandboys, and you just learn so much at dinner time and listening, and
Yeah.
it was just a lot of fun. Great time.
Awesome.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So other than the consulting, and it sounds to me, it's hard to believe, but it sounds to me like the fax territory's out, and you're
Yeah, I'm not looking at that.
not looking at. Okay.
Now, he did say earlier in the summer that he had one more great run in him, and he was trying to
Okay.
figure out what he wanted
Yeah,
to do with that.
I just think there's one more chapter. I don't quite know what it is, but in all sincerity, I've not known what the next chapter has been numerous times, and that's been the excitement of it.
Right, yeah.
For sure.
You should have some butterflies when you go into something.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's next. But if this is it, I'm good with it.
Well, I know undoubtedly it'll be something here in Washtenaw County, and he'll be working with, making an impact some way in an organization, whether it's nonprofit or some type of volunteer work, or maybe even a paid gig, right? That'd be
Yeah,
nice
well,
too,
there
wouldn't
you
it?
Well, I'm chair. I'm president of Ann Arbor Rotary this year, which 3 months into, which is we have 230 members, and so that's keeping me somewhat busy.
Wow.
Well, I know he's still sharp because he promised me. He begged me to be on our podcast. He said, "Hey, look, Kevin, you bring me on your podcast, I'll get you around this fall at Barton Hills."
Oh.
And I said yes, and then I found out Barton Hills is closed. And he said, "Oh, sorry, we missed the window."
Yeah, it broke my heart. Yeah, you know, as you well know, there's only certain places you can take Kevin.
He wouldn't be allowed at a place like Barton Hills. Yeah.
Not Kevin.
Or you could have been talking about a round of Diet Coke.
That's true.
It could.
That's true.
Well, hey, thank you for being on, and I
This was a
appreciate you
pleasure.
coming out. And you know, I know I speak for Tom here, but we appreciate the mentorship and friendship that you've been to a lot of business owners here in town, and just a lot of people in general. We had I know we had done a podcast earlier with Ellie's Place, and that was something you were very instrumental with Ellie's Place, Ann Arbor, and
Yeah, I was the first chair of that board. Getting it started.
Yeah.
It's very important.
so thank you for all your volunteer work. Thank you for trying to straighten us out up at the Capitol in Lansing there, and everything else.
Just keep in mind that Tom's mother loved me more than
Thank you for pointing that out, Mark.
That could be the title. Tom's mother loves.
loves me more than.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Much
Mark.
appreciated.
Yep, it's good to see you again.
Good seeing you all.
Yep.